Welcome to Water Chemistry 101. In this next segment, we're going to go through how to use a test kit and how to maintain your water chemistry to where you have crystal clear water. In fact, I've spent the last 10 years educating myself on pool chemicals, pool chemistry, LSI, and how to maintain a really good water chemistry. So I'm going to dedicate a little bit of this time to showing you how to do it as well. First off, my startup team should have provided you with a chemistry test kit. Now this is a professional test kit that I use. The one that we provide you is a little bit smaller. It's got 3 different reagents in it so you can test chlorine, acid, and alkalinity. Inside this you'll have these little test tubes that you can mix the water and then get the readings. And we find that this is far better than the test strips. So if you have test strips, they work okay, but they're not as accurate as actually some of these drop tests. With water chemistry, there's about 5 different tests that you need to do to really get your water dialed in. Obviously most of the pool service companies do the chlorine and the acid. We'll show you how to do that next with some of the droplets. Alkalinity, which buffers pH. Calcium hardness, which is how much calcium you have actually dissolved in the water of your pool. And then there's cyanuric acid levels. So cyanuric acid actually stabilizes, actually holds and combines chlorine together so you can use it longer within the pool. But it's actually one of those items that you don't want too high in the pool. And we'll go into that a little bit later on how cyanuric acid affects your LSI. So what is LSI? LSI stands for Langlier Saturation Index, and that's kind of how you take all 5 of these readings and you put them into an equation that we can give you and an app that I'm going to go into here in a little bit. But it's how stable your water is and how active calcium is within your water chemistry. We actually, in LSI, proper LSI, we take water temperature, we take phosphates, we take a couple other readings, and it goes into an app that we're going to show you, and it tells you how well you're maintaining your water chemistry. Very neutral water chemistry is going to be 0. So you can't just test chlorine and pH and call it a day, because you can still have damaging effects and aggressive water. And aggressive water is water that might be very low on the LSI to where it's wanting to pull more calcium out of the interior finish. It starts to etch your pool. It starts to eat away at your pebble or your plaster. And quite on the opposite, if you have a high LSI, you start to get scaling. So calcium is going to want to attach to the water line, that's going to want to attach to the pool. You can have things as bad as mineral precipitation where you have calcium and scale that builds up on the surface of the pool. And all that can happen with a poor LSI. So before we get into our Orenda app, and that's an app that we actually use to get the LSI reading of our swimming pool water, we have to actually get the test results. So I'm going to go through a little bit and test this pool right here. This is my swimming pool, and I've got a neat little swim up bar here where I sit down and I can actually test my water chemistry. So we're going to get into that. First of all, I'm going to test chlorine and acid. Chlorine is the yellow drops. A lot of times you're going to want to get water, about 12 inches below the water level, and I'm going to fill it to the line at the top, and then I add 5 drops of R1 and 5 drops of reagent 2, and I keep these in order. Take the cap. So now I can actually read the chlorine by matching up the shade of pink, and right now it looks like my chlorine's probably somewhere between 2 and 3, maybe closer to 2. And that's a little high for my pool. I like running my pool. Proper pool chemistry would be anywhere from 1 to 3 parts per million of chlorine. So anywhere between 1 and 3 is good. As you start to get above 3, it can be damaging to your skin, sensitive to skin allergies, drying your skin, hurting your eyes, things like that. So be careful not to over chlorinate your pool. Next, we're going to go into our pH testing. Again, I'm going to grab water. A lot of times you don't want to grab water right on the surface, especially when testing chlorine. The sun will start to eat away and dissolve the chlorine at the surface. So you go down a little bit further. So my reagent 4 is my pH reagent. Once you see any red or pink in this, that means your pH is probably 7.6, 7.8 or higher. The brighter red it is, the higher the pH. A lot of pools that we go to, we're gonna see really high pH. I have a pH management system on my pool, so my pool always stays around 7.2 or so. Right now it's reading somewhere around 7.2 based on the color. So, next we're gonna go into our alkalinity. Alkalinity is a little longer test. Most of these test kits tell you exactly what drops you need to put in, and I've been doing this for years, so I know this by heart. But for alkalinity, I'm going to go ahead and read this. It says 25 milliliters of water, 2 drops of R7, 5 drops of R8. Okay, so this is R7, 1, 2. One, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Swirl to mix. Now we need to add R9 drop-wise. So my alkalinity I'm expecting to be somewhere around 100 to 110. So I'm going to start with 5 drops. So as you swirl this, you can see it kind of turns pink at the top and then it goes back to green. I'm going to add 3 more drops, so I'm up to 8 drops. Now it's getting light green. 9 drops. It turns pink, but it turns back to gray, and then 10 drops. See how now it just barely stays pink. So 10 drops times 10, so my alkalinity is 100 parts per million. So next we're going to go to calcium hardness. Now one of the common misconceptions is that you need to drain your pool every single year or every 2 years or every 3 years because your calcium gets too high. You can manage your pool properly with high levels of calcium, you just have to pay attention to the pH and the alkalinity. And we'll go into that a little bit on the LSI reading, but I'm going to go back to calcium. And this one I usually have to read just to make sure, but 20 drops of R10, that's a lot of drops. 20. Swirl to mix, 5 drops of R11. Now again, you will not have the calcium test kit in the kit that we provide, but if you do, if you are maintaining your own pool, this is the K2005 test kit from Taylor. They're probably 60, 70, 80 bucks online. I believe you can buy this on Amazon. And then now we're going to add drop-wise R12 and multiply by 10. So I know my calcium, we want our calcium to be at least 250 when we start up our pools, somewhere between 250 parts per million and 300. So we want calcium in the pool. We want calcium in the pool because we have calcium in our plaster and in our concrete. And if we don't have calcium in the pool, the water is going to want to pull that calcium out, and that's where you start to get the scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 10, and this will turn from pink to blue, so I have no change. 10 more, that's 200. Now I've got 30 drops in here, which is 300. I can see a little blue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I kind of do 5 drops at a time. Now you can kind of see that it's starting to change from pink to blue, so I'm at 35 drops, 36, 37. It's kind of a purple color now. And like I said, between pink and blue, you get purple. So mine's changing somewhere around 38 to 40 drops or so. So multiply that times 10 per my instructions, and my calcium hardness is about 400. So 40 times 10. Finally, cyanuric acid. Cyanuric is one of the biggest debates right now in the pool industry. The higher the cyanuric, the more your chlorine combines, and the longer it stays in your pool, but the less effective it is. It's not free and it's not active chlorine. So liquid chlorine is going to be free and active chlorine, but the sun and bathers eat up that chlorine very quickly. So you almost have to add liquid chlorine to your pool once a day. So just to keep your chlorine levels high. So therefore, if you have a pool service company, they're going to add stabilized tabs. Your cyanuric level is going to be through the roof, usually 100, 150, 200. I've seen some up to 300 before. And that's so they can keep chlorine in your pool for the full week. Sometimes that's what you got to do. But cyanuric levels, when we get into the LSI on the reading, cyanuric levels should be, on my pool, I keep my cyanuric levels around 30 parts per million. We don't want it much higher than that. Actually, lower than that is more free and more active chlorine. Most of our pools we start up and we try to keep them around 50 to 60 parts per million because we want chlorine to stay in the pool. And then you'll see that as you add the stabilized chlorine tabs, like the tab feeder, that cyanuric level starts to go up, almost, maybe 10 points a month or so. So after, 10, 11, 12 months, you can have cyanuric levels up to 170, 180, and that's not good. So I would say keep your cyanuric between 50 parts per million, maybe up to 100 at the most, and then as you start to get above that, you want to start thinking about draining your water. Water drains are probably more common and more necessary because of high cyanuric acid levels, not because of high calcium levels. So just keep that in mind. Going into testing, so where is my cyanuric? How well have I been keeping this up to speed? So I want to add 7 milliliters. I'm going to add my reagent, 7 more. Okay. And we're going to agitate and shake this for 30 seconds. And then we're going to add it to this tube here. And when we look in, we'll see a black dot in the bottom. And you add this until the black dot disappears. When it disappears, you're going to read the reading on the side. The reading on the side is from 30 all the way up to 100. Once you get over 100, this doesn't even read it. It's because you shouldn't have cyanuric over 100. And slowly going to add it. Most of the time I can get mine all the way to the top. I can still see that black dot. And it's just starting to disappear now. So look at that. Mine's right around 35 parts per million of cyanuric acid. And that's ideal for the IntelliChem system that I have by Pentair. We want a cyanuric level between 20 parts per million and up to 50 parts per million max. And that keeps the free chlorine in the pool. So what do we do with all this data? I've got my chemistry test readings. Let's see if I can remember those as we put them in. But I'm going to go into my Orenda app and we're going to start to add data. So my pool is 55,000 gallons. Water temperature current, it's about 54 degrees last time I checked. My pH was 7.2. Alkalinity was 100, and you can see this is just a little dial that you can select all these things. My calcium, we said, was 350 to 4. We're going to do 400 on the calcium. Cyanuric was 35. It is asking for salts. So I don't have salt in my pool, so salts we usually leave around 1,000. And then no phosphates, and my chlorine is around 1.5 to 2. All right, so I've got a pretty bad water chemistry right now, to be honest with you. It is reading minus 0.46 LSI, and it's actually in the red. So that means I've got some chemicals that are off. So I need to make some adjustments, and that's the nice thing about this app. The Orenda app, once you put in all the data on the left, you put the desired data on the right. Where do you want your pool to be? And then you can watch the LSI start to get back to neutral. So right now my pool is very corrosive, meaning it's starting to pull calcium out of the interior finish, which we don't want. So on the desired side, I'm gonna, 55 degrees is water temperature. I I can't change the water temperature. So what can we do to change the LSI? Well, I can change the pH. We can increase the pH. So immediately, as I start to increase the pH from 7.2 to 7.5, my LSI goes to a negative 0.17, and you can see it's in the yellow. We're going to take the pH up to 7.6 and 7.7. Let's see what it does. So just by taking my pH up to 7.7, I've got an LSI of 0.02. So all I have to do to get my water in compliance, my pH is just too low. I need to increase my pH to 7.7, and my water chemistry is perfect. So this is the number that you want to see. You want to see the green in the LSI. Again, calcium, you're not going to change. We'll start up your pool with 250 to 300 parts per million of calcium. You're going to see that number slowly go up over time, but you're not going to be able to, you don't need to add calcium or remove calcium. In fact, the only way to remove calcium is to drain your pool, or partial drains of the pool. Cyanuric you might want to play with. So cyanuric can affect the LSI, but for the most part, your pH and your alkalinity is what really drives that LSI number, and that's what you need to keep track of. So right now we're going to have to make some chemical adjustments to the pool. Usually it's chlorine and acid. In this case, it's going to have to be some sodium bicarbonate in order to increase the pH, which is also going to increase the alkalinity a little bit. And this will dial my pool into near perfect LSI. So other pool service requirements, you might be asking, is it daily, is it weekly, is it monthly? What are the things that we have to do in those increments? Again, in our orientation checklist, we have our pool service requirements that you'll get a copy of. On a daily basis, I have visual and audio inspection of the pool for potential issues, and maintain proper water chemistry. So what does that mean? Do you need to go out and look at your pool every day? It's recommended. What happens if a pump is on, draining water into the side of the pool? You're only going to catch that if you walk out and look at the pool or look at the equipment. So if you have the ability to do that, at my pool here at my house, every single morning I walk out, I look at my pool. That's just a habit. I want to see, is the water level right? Is there algae growing? What's going on? But I don't necessarily walk out and test my water chemistry every day. I don't walk out and service my pumps every day. So daily is a visual and audio inspection. Do you hear any noises? Do you hear any loud noises? Do you hear a motor burning up on a pump? That's the audio portion of things. Just be aware of what's going on in your project or your backyard. And of course, I say maintain proper water chemistry because we want the water chemistry maintained throughout the week. Twice per week we have in our proper maintenance, chemistry testing and balancing as required. So before I said a couple times a week, twice per week if you can get out and check your water chemistry and make proper adjustments, sometimes maybe more in the summertime, okay? Twice per week, clean the skimmer baskets and your debris baskets. We talked about that a little bit in the orientation. The skimmer baskets, debris baskets, once or twice a week, depending on the time of year. You don't want those to back up because it restricts flow at that point. And we say twice a week to brush your pool. Now I'll be honest, my pool, I probably only brush a couple times a month. But when I first got it, I would brush it a couple times a week. In fact, brushing your pool, hopefully you're watching this video as soon as you get water in your pool, but we ask that you brush your pool up to 5 times a day and more for the first 5 days or so. In fact, we put that in writing in our construction agreements. Just because new pools, they're fresh, the fresh plaster, any dirt that gets in that pool could actually bind to the plaster and you can start to see stains. So brushing that dirt off the top, it brushes the some of the Portland cement residue off the aggregate, and it gives you a brighter, cleaner looking finish. So back to the proper water increments, but brushing the pool a couple times a week is ideal. Twice a month, we ask for you to check the filter pressure. Okay, we'll go into that when you look at the filters and pumps, to check your salt levels, visually inspect your UV and ozone status for some of the blue lights. Check for leaks. You're looking for water around pumps. You're looking for anything that looks like the pool is leaking, any patio settlement, any wet spots, moisture spots. Report that to us so we can take a peek at it. You want to verify that your programming is accurate. This is just twice a month, making sure your schedules are running at the right time. You know, in the summertime and wintertime, you might be on a different energy program from SRP. So I might run my pumps during the day with solar because I want to use some of my solar, so I'm running my pool pumps during the day. But in the wintertime, I might be running them at night or vice versa. So look at your SRP or APS bill, see when the cheapest time to run your pool is, and set your schedules that way. So you do have to verify and change some of the scheduling and programming. You also want to make sure that maybe your water features are set to come on every single day for 24 hours because you had friends in town. You want to go back and take those schedules off. So that's why we ask to verify your programming and your automation a couple times a month. And then if you have a sand filter or a DE filter, backwash the filters if that's needed. Most of our systems are designed with cartridge filters because we have the best flow rate as the debris starts to back up within the cartridge filter. So the dirtier our cartridge filters get, they don't reduce the flow rate so that we have cleaner pools and more horsepower, more flow to our indoor cleaning systems. Next, we go semi-annually, which is every 6 months. We need to check and clean our cartridge filters. So like I said, 95% of our pools have indoor cleaning systems and cartridge filters. So typically we find that those cartridge filters need to be cleaned every 6 to 9 months. You want to check and clean your salt cell if you do have a salt pool. Every 90 days is possible with high use. So in the summertime, it could be every 60 to 90 days. In the wintertime right now, did you know that your salt pool doesn't even turn on when it's under 55 degrees water temperature? It's not effective, so it's got a cell prolongment setting where it does not turn on. So in the wintertime, you might not have to clean your salt cell as much. Every year, we recommend a thorough assessment and check of all your pool systems. We do not come out at a year. That's not a courtesy service at a year and two unless there's a problem. Again, that would be by you or a service professional, but again, that's just a visual check, making sure your UV system is working, your ozone system is working, that your programming is all working, maybe that your water is in perfect condition. Every 2 years, if you are using a cyanuric or a stabilized chlorine dispensing system, that's one of the chlorinators that you drop the tabs into, your cyanuric levels, as we talked in Pool Chemistry 101, your cyanuric levels are going to be up over 100, and you're going to need to do partial drains of your swimming pool. So every 2 years or so, drain your pool water, refill the pool, and rebalance the pool. And every 3 years, if you have the systems like UV, ozone, salt, you're getting into the lifespan of those systems. So UV lamps and ozone lamps usually last 2 to 3 years. Your salt cell is a 3 to 4 year, projected lifespan. So those, you need to start looking to see if those are working to 100% capability and start looking at replacement or service on them. I also have consider replacement of the salt cell filters, O-rings, seals. This may or may not be required, but it's part of our checklist. Again, my service techs might quickly go through this with you. This is part of our service requirements and our pool orientation, but right now this is me telling you about each one so that you can have a little bit more information on what each one of them means.